Godfall, Emmet's Dawn by Joe Lance. Chapter 5. The Weight of Divinity. The truth struck Emmet with the force of a collapsing mountain. His new power, his divinity, was tethered to limitations he hadn't foreseen. He wasn't a boundless, elemental wielder, bending nature to his will. Instead, his strength was intrinsically linked to the totem itself, a connection fraught with complications. Initially, Emmet reveled in the raw might the totem bestowed. Its sturdy mass, the subtle gravitational effects it commanded, the defensive reinforcement it offered. It was exhilarating. But with each activation, a crucial flaw revealed itself. It was draining, not just fatigue, but a hollowness that seemed to scoop out his very core, leaving him lightheaded and trembling. Every time he expanded the totem, felt the raw earth groan and reshape under his will. The weight of exertion dragged at his body like chains. Creating a larger totem consumed too much of his essence, a burning drain that flared behind his eyes, too much to risk in the crucible of battle. Worse, his passive enhancement only functioned when he was in direct contact with the totem. The moment he threw it, his durability vanished. This meant one thing. He had to carry it. Emmet's obsession became testing these limits. He spent hours experimenting, throwing the totem, activating its effects, measuring its gravitational radius, and keenly observing the shifts within his own body while holding it. He felt the subtle pull against his own mass, the hum of contained power. Time and again, the truth solidified. If he wanted to master this power, he had to cease relying on active activation. Instead, he would wield the totem itself, not as a magical conduit, but as a weapon. The transition was arduous. The totem's immense weight made movement cumbersome, but Emmet adapted. He learned to swing it with efficiency, shifting his stance, leveraging momentum rather than brute force. He embraced its heft, feeling raw energy ripple through his arms with each strike, a growing kinship with the stone. The villagers stared in stunned silence as Emmet walked the streets, a towering two-handed totem strapped to his back like a war club, a weapon unlike any they had ever witnessed. They whispered, they pointed, their hushed tones carrying on the wind. A young man carrying a massive totem, seemingly unbothered by their reactions. Emmet ignored them. He wasn't seeking their approval. He was there to refine himself, to master the art of combat, to discipline his instincts, and to wield the totem with skill, not reckless power. Through practice, through hardship, through relentless adaptation, he knew he had found his path. And perhaps, just perhaps, this was the key to finally earning his place among the Seekers. To the path beyond the village. Seasons blurred into years, and with their passing, Emmet's understanding deepened. For 2 years, he devoured every available theory, absorbing knowledge, testing hypotheses, and forging his own. What others dismissed, he dissected. What was deemed impossible, he questioned. He mastered everything the village offered, from ancient rune theory to combat strategies, particularly the practical application of his totem's gravitational forces. His days were a blur of dusty scrolls and strenuous practice, pushing his mind and body to their limits. Yet, despite his diligence, despite his brilliance, an undeniable truth persisted. His knowledge was no longer enough. His divinity was unique, transcending the conventional understanding of elementalists and tool-wielding divinants. No one had studied this kind of power before. No one could teach him what he had become. Even his teacher recognized this. The elder stood before him, quiet and contemplative, a solemn weight to his gaze. Finally, he spoke. Emmet, you were an amazing student. You found your own path, and even I thought it would take you longer to discover it. He sighed, shaking his head. But what you have uncovered is different. I have never heard of anything like it before. I don't think anyone in this territory can teach you further about your divinity. Emmet's gaze held the elder's, a deep sense of inevitability settling within him. This was not a dismissal, but a profound recognition of his unique journey. He nodded slowly, unshaken. That is right, he affirmed, his voice firm with conviction, which is why I must go. Traveling, experiencing the world, only then will I broaden my knowledge and sharpen my abilities. The decision wasn't made lightly, but it felt destined. He had studied, refined, and perfected all that was within his reach. Now his journey would no longer be confined to books and lessons. It was time for experience. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the path to becoming a seeker awaited him. The Scholar of the North. Emmet stood before the sovereign, his gaze steady, his mind sharp. The council sat in anticipation as he presented his life's work. 3 meticulously crafted books, their pages brimming with theories that pushed the boundaries of conventional, divinant knowledge. He felt the familiar weight of the leather-bound volumes in his hands, each page a testament to countless sleepless nights and relentless intellectual pursuit. Earth Theory, a foundational study on the nature of the element itself, dissecting its properties beyond mere elemental control. Divinant Skills and Applications, a collection of principles outlining techniques divinants could wield, though, ironically, he himself could not use them. The Tool Divinant Root, a groundbreaking thesis on runecraft, sigils, talismans, and totems, revealing new possibilities beyond traditional activation methods. Silence descended after his presentation, thick with awe. Then, murmurs of astonishment filled the chamber. A genius, someone whispered, the word carrying disbelief. How could a young man, someone so untrained in conventional divination, produce work that rivals our finest scholars? Emmet remained composed, though a flicker of satisfaction warmed his chest. He had proven himself. His knowledge had earned its place. The council did not hesitate, granting him nobility and awarding land for his mother and himself, a rare honor, unheard of for someone so young. This recognition far exceeded what he had imagined. Yet Emmet barely acknowledged the reward. Titles meant little. Land meant little. What he truly wanted, what he had always wanted, was to become a seeker. His request to travel beyond the northern border initially met resistance, but his books were powerful leverage. His theories held immense value, value the North could not afford to ignore. And so, in exchange for the knowledge he had imparted, the sovereign granted his approval. As he stepped out of the grand halls, the cool air hitting his face, his mind did not linger on his newfound nobility. He had earned his right to venture beyond the North. The world awaited him, and beyond its borders, the Finders Guild held his destiny. The chains of nobility. Emmet stood before the council, the weight of their pronouncement settling in his mind. The chamber was grand, its high walls adorned with ancient banners depicting the lineage of northern rulers. Yet none of that mattered. Not the prestige, not the tradition, only the subtle trap woven into their proclamation. The sovereign spoke with authority, his tone imbued with an air of magnanimity. Your land will be far east in the Northern Territory, he announced, a fine estate, fit for your new status as a noble. Murmurs of approval rippled through the council chamber, nods of agreement exchanged among the esteemed scholars and rulers. Noble, landed, recognized. Emmet kept his expression unreadable, but his mind sharpened like a blade. Far east, not centrally located, not near the capital. A distant land, a quiet exile, far from political influence, far from opportunity, far from his chance to leave. The realization hit him with a cold certainty. They didn't want me to leave. He could travel technically, but his mother? She would be bound to the land, an anchor he couldn't simply cut loose. And what kind of son would abandon his noble responsibilities, neatly tied with a ribbon of honor? It was a clever move, a calculated bind dressed as a generous reward. Emmet's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. So this is how you want to play it? His gaze flickered toward the council members, reading their confident, measured expressions. The expectation of submission, the certainty that the weight of nobility would restrain him, making him one of them instead of a wanderer chasing ideals. He met his mother's soft, unreadable eyes, a shared history of unspoken battles passing between them. She understood the game as well as he did. For now, I'll play along. A respectful nod. Thank you for this honor. A pause. Then a bow, measured, deliberate, calculated. The chamber seemed pleased with his acceptance. Some even smiled, believing they had secured his loyalty. But they had not won. They had merely changed the rules of the game. And Emmet? He would break them. The empty lands. Emmet sat in silence as the carriage rumbled toward his newly awarded territory. The document in his hand, his proof of nobility, felt heavier than its parchment weight. A noble title, a gift. Yet as the land stretched before him, barren and untouched, dry winds whispering across the parched earth, the truth settled in his mind. They had played a fool of him. His grip tightened around the rolled-up decree. No workers, no people, not even a structure to mark civilization. Just land, vast and hollow, a horizon that seemed to swallow all hope. A tether, a binding disguised as an honor. The council had ensured his nobility was a cage rather than a privilege. If he left now, who would tend the land? Who would protect his mother? His jaw tensed. So this is their game. The carriage slowed, dust rising in plumes as it came to a stop. Emmet exhaled, letting his thoughts settle before stepping out. He turned and offered his hand to his mother, Lady Nina, steady and respectful. She took it, stepping lightly onto the cracked earth. Even here, she carried herself with quiet dignity, her gaze sweeping the desolate expanse with a calm that belied the situation. As their feet touched the land, they were greeted by a single figure, a man in simple work clothes, his posture upright despite the wear of time etched on his face. Beside him stood his wife, a gentle-looking woman, and their young daughter, no older than 12, clutching the hem of her mother's dress, her eyes wide with cautious curiosity. The man bowed deeply, a flicker of unease in his sincere voice. Lord Emmet Langer, Lady Nina, welcome. We weren't expecting you to arrive so soon. Please forgive us. We have not prepared for your arrival. Emmet studied him. This man was the caretaker, the sole resident of this forsaken land, a family, his first citizens. What am I going to do here? The thought lingered as his eyes swept across the empty horizon, the sheer scale of the neglect overwhelming. This wasn't a grand inheritance. It was a trial, an obstacle designed to stall him. He turned back to the man, his voice calm, measured. Your name? Brendan, my lord. This is my wife, Rita, and our daughter, Lily. Emmet nodded once. Then, let's not waste time. Tell me everything about this land. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with. If the council thought this barren land would trap him, they had gravely underestimated him. He would find a way forward. The Wasteland's Guardian. The sun hung low over the barren land, casting stretched shadows over cracked earth and distant, jagged mountains. The wind, dry and relentless, scoured the sparse, tough vegetation, whispering a lonely tune. As Emmet surveyed the vast, empty terrain that was now his domain, the weight of realization pressed heavily on his shoulders. A wasteland, not a thriving estate, not a settlement with workers. Just land, dry and unyielding, its silence broken only by the wind. The council had given him nothing more than a stretch of forgotten territory, a silent message telling him to stay in place or struggle to survive. And yet, something was off. Emmet's sharp gaze swept across the horizon. The north was harsh, but it wasn't truly barren. Other territories thrived. So why had this land remained untouched for so long? Why was there no sign of civilization, no ruins of past attempts? The answer came swiftly. Brendan stood before him, his posture straight despite the evident wear of hardship on his face. His wife, Rita, kept a watchful hand on their daughter, Lily, who peered up at Emmet with cautious curiosity, her eyes like dark pools reflecting the vast emptiness. They were his first citizens, the only ones who had dared remain on this forsaken land. My lord, I wish to escort you to our home, Bren said, his voice heavy with respect, a tremor of apprehension beneath it. Please, make use of our house while you do not yet have your own. My family and I will find another place for ourselves. Emmet's eyes flickered toward the small house standing alone in the distance. It was modest, barely fit for a family of 3, let alone for nobility. He paused. Then his voice came, steady and honest. How can I take someone else's house and leave you with nothing? To sleep in soil? Bren blinked, surprised by the response. This was not the behavior of a noble, not the arrogance or entitlement he had come to expect. My lord, Bren said carefully, I wouldn't dare let you sleep outside. That would be disrespectful. Emmet exhaled, a thoughtful sound. Then allow my mother to share your home. I will manage elsewhere. Bren hesitated, studying the young noble before him. This boy, this man, was too sharp, too composed. He did not act like an aristocrat, yet his presence carried an undeniable authority that transcended status. From now on, Emmet continued, his tone unwavering, you will address me as Emmet, not Lord Emmet. This is your exclusive privilege as my first people. Brendan exchanged a glance with his wife before nodding slowly, a new understanding dawning in his eyes. As you wish. Emmet. A subtle shift in power. Not domination, but respect. A nascent bond forged in the harsh reality of their surroundings. But even as this small connection was made, the real issue loomed over them. a silent giant in the empty landscape. Brendan, Emmet said, turning his gaze toward the desolate expanse. Tell me, why is this land truly abandoned? Bren's face darkened, a grim shadow falling over his features. Because of the dragon. Silence settled between them, heavy and absolute. So that was the truth. This wasn't just a land of neglect, it was a land of conflict, a territory held captive by a singular, immense force. The dragon ensured there were no other beasts, a chilling quietude across the plains, but its presence prevented any settlement from forming. If Emmet removed it, infestations would take hold, a tide of smaller, ravenous creatures. But if he let it remain, the land would stay empty, a mind game, and one he intended to win. The unseen conflict. Brendan's words hung in the air like an unshaken storm. Because of the dragon. Emmet remained still, his expression unreadable, his breathing steady. He did not react with frustration, nor with shock. He merely processed, calculated. His gaze swept over the barren land, now painted with a new truth. The north was harsh, but not empty. There were settlements, villages, trade routes. Yet this land remained untouched, an anomaly in a world that valued every inch of arable soil. And now, he understood why. The dragon was not just a problem, it was the very reason this territory still existed. No infestation of beasts, no waves of monstrous creatures, just the dragon, ruling over the desolate stretch like a silent, terrible guardian. A dilemma presented itself, sharp and clear. If he removed the dragon, the land would become available for settlement. But in doing so, he would unleash the inevitable swarms of beasts that had been held at bay. The council knew this. They had given him a noble title, land, responsibility. But beneath that gesture lay a trap. If he failed to clear the land, he would be seen as incompetent, his claims of genius dismissed. If he succeeded in removing the dragon, he would face an infestation far worse than a single creature, turning his noble land into a permanent battlefield. So how do I solve this? Emmet took a slow, deliberate breath. His mind worked swiftly, methodically. He did not let emotions cloud his judgment or frustration dictate his thoughts. Instead, he broke the problem down into solvable components. Step 1. Understanding the dragon. Why did it remain here? Was it territorial, or was there a deeper, unknown reason? Did it attack humans outright, or did it simply maintain its domain? If it could be reasoned with, could he negotiate instead of resorting to brute force? Step 2. Controlling the beast infestation. If removing the dragon led to beast swarms, how could he prevent them from overrunning the land? Perhaps a new force could be lured in, another natural predator to replace the dragon. Or maybe the land itself could be fortified, slowing beast migration before settlements could even arrive. Step 3. Manipulating political perception. The council expected either failure or brute force. What if he proved the land's worth without removing the dragon? Could he create an adaptive settlement, working around the creature rather than against it? If the dragon had a deeper significance, uncovering its true purpose could shift the entire political narrative surrounding this wasteland. Each possibility unraveled before him, each pathway leading to consequences beyond just battle. This was not about fighting. This was about control, strategy, precision. His focus did not waver. Emmet was not a man ruled by impulse. He was calm, calculative, and always thinking 10 steps ahead. Turning back to Bren, he spoke, his voice composed, unwavering. I need to see this dragon. Brendan hesitated, his expression tightening, a desperate plea in his eyes. Emmet, no, that creature is no ordinary beast. It is a monster, a terrifying force unlike anything you've seen. How can a boy face something like that? I cannot lead you to your death. Emmet let silence stretch between them before answering, measured and firm. We are not going to face it head on. His voice carried no uncertainty, only reason. We are going to observe it, stealthily. Brendan looked at him, searching for any flicker of fear, any hint of youthful bravado. He found none, only a quiet, unyielding resolve that mirrored the vast, silent land around them. And so, despite every instinct screaming against it, he nodded. The first dangerous step into the dragon's shadow was taken. Emmet's path, once confined to books and theory, now led directly into the heart of the unknown, guided by a mind that saw not just a monster, but a problem waiting to be solved. End of chapter 5.